Hello, today I'll be going over 9.6, which is translate and classify conic sections. So in the previous sections, all of the center were at 0, 0, but this time the point HK is the vertex of the parabola or the center of one of the other conics, so the circle, ellipses, or hyperbola. So here are how the different equations are going to change when the center isn't at 0, 0 and at HK instead. Okay, so in the examples, we're first going to graph the equation, identify the important characteristics of the graph. So first we have to decide which type of conic this is. We have something squared plus something squared equals 9. So this is going to be a circle. So for a circle, we need to know the center, which is going to be HK. So this number is H and this number is K, so it's at 2, 7. And then the radius is going to be the square root of this number. So r squared equals 9, so that means r equals 3. So my center is at 2, 7 right here. And now I'm going to go 3 in all directions to create my circle. So I'm going 3 up, 3 to the left, 3 down, and 3 to the right, and then drawing a circle. Okay, next one we have y squared y minus 2 squared equals 4 times x plus 3. So only one variable is squared, which is y, so that means this is going to be a parabola. And this is going to open to the right, since it's y squared and this number is positive. Okay, so the vertex is going to be at HK. So this number is going to be H, so that's negative 3, and this number is K, so that's 2. So negative 3, negative 2 right here. And then we have to find P. So this number here is 4P, so 4P equals 4, so that means P equals 1. And for the focus, we're going to be changing the x coordinate since it's going to be inside the graph. So it's going to be negative 3 plus 1, 2. So I'm changing the x coordinate, and since p is 1, I'm adding 1. So the focus is going to be at negative 2, 2. Oh, sorry, I graphed this wrong. Okay, and this is the vertex, and then the focus is going to be right here. Okay, the directrix is going to be a vertical line. It's going to be at x equals negative 3 minus 1. So we're going 1 to the left of the vertex. So it's going to be at x equals negative 4. So that's going to be this line here. Okay, and now we just have to plot in some points to find points on the graph. So let's plug in. We want to pick a number that would be a good number to plug in for x. So I'm going to choose 1 because 1 plus 3 is 4, and then 4 times 4 is 16, which is a perfect square. So that's y minus 2 squared equals 4 times 1 plus 3. That's going to be y minus 2 squared equals 4 times 4, which is 16. And then we can square root both sides. So we get y minus 2 equals plus or minus 4. So here we'll have to split it into two equations. We have y minus 2 equals 4 and y minus 2 equals negative 4. And then solve for y. So we get y equals 6 and y equals negative 2. So that means our 2 points would be 1, 6 and 1, negative 2. So that would be here and here. Oops. So the graph will look something like this. Okay, next we have this graph here, or this equation here. Since it's a plus sign, I only have two denominators. This is going to be an ellipse. The center is going to be at 0, 2, since there's no number next to x squared. And then this number, this number is bigger, so this will tell us a squared. So a squared equals 25, and that means a equals plus or minus 5. And we're going to be changing the x coordinate. So this will tell us the vertices. And we can take the center and change the x coordinate of the center. So it's going to be 0 plus or minus 5, 2. So for this one, it'll just be plus or minus 5, 2, which is going to be here and here. Okay, and then we have to find the co-vertices. So we're looking at b, which is 4. So b squared equals 4, and that means b equals plus or minus 2. And since this is under y, we're going to be changing the y coordinate of the center. So co-vertices, it's going to stay 0, and then 2 plus or minus 2. So then we'll have to figure out each one. 2 plus 2 is going to be 4, and 2 minus 2 is going to be 0. So those are going to be our two co-vertices. And another way to think of this is, we know that A is 5, so we're going to go 5 units to the right and to the left for those points. And then we know that B is 2, so we're going to go up and down 2 from the center. Okay, and then the last thing we have to find is the foci. So that's going to be using the equation c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So that's going to be 25 minus 4, which is 21. And then we have to square root both sides, so we get c equals plus or minus square root of 21. And since the vertices are on the x-axis, we're going to change the x coordinates from the center. So it's going to be 0 plus or minus rad 21, 2. And rad 21 is about 4.583. So the foci will be right about here. Okay, and this last one is going to be a hyperbola because we have two different denominators and a minus sign. So this center is going to be at -8, -4. So make sure you look at the x first. X was second, so we're looking at this number for the x coordinate. Okay, then for the vertices, we're going to look at a squared, so that's going to be this first number squared, or square root of that number, So a squared is 49. So a is going to be plus or minus 7. And since this is under y, we're going to be changing the y coordinates of the center. So that's going to be negative 8, negative 4, plus or minus 7. Then we have to figure out what that is. So the x is going to stay the same at negative 8. The y coordinate is going to be negative 4 plus 7, which is 3, and negative 4 minus 7, which is negative 11. Then we have that point for the box. That's going to be looking at the b squared value, or the b value. So b squared equals 9, and that means b equals plus or minus 3. So that means we're going to be changing the x coordinate plus or minus 3 from the center. So that's negative 8 plus or minus 3, negative 4. And that'll give us the points negative 8 plus 3, which is negative 5, and negative 8 minus 3, which is negative 11. Okay, so our vertices are at negative 8, 3, and negative 8, negative 11. And then for the box, we have negative 5, negative 4, and negative 11, negative 4. So from here, we can draw the box. And then draw the asymptotes. And from there we can draw the graph. Okay, when the when the center isn't at 0, 0, we won't have to find the asymptotes. So we just have to find the foci. And we're going to be using the equation c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So that's going to be 49 plus 9, which is 58. And then we're going to square root both sides. So we get c equals plus or minus square root of 58, since this doesn't simplify. And since for the vertices, the y coordinate of the center changed, for the foci, we're going to be changing the y coordinate as well. So that's going to be negative 8, negative 4, plus or minus rad 58. Then you would use a calculator to figure out what these two numbers would be. So that's negative 8, 3.616 when we add them, and negative 8, negative 11.616 when we subtract them. So that means the foci are going to be about here and here. Oops, I graphed my vertice a little low. It should be at 3. So right here. Okay, there we go. Okay, next we're going to be writing equations for the conic section. For the first one, we have a center, or a circle with center at 9, 1 and radius of 2. So for the equation of a circle, that's going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And the center is hk, so we can just plug that in. That's going to be x minus 9 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals r is 2, so that's going to be 4. Next, we have a parabola at vertex at 5, 3. So if it helps, I'm just going to draw a little picture here. We have the vertex at 5, 3, which is going to be somewhere here, and directrix at y equals 6. So that's going to be above that. So that means our graph is going to open down. So since it opens down, that means we're going to be using the equation x minus h squared equals 4 times y minus k. Oops, 4p, sorry. Okay, and then the distance between the vertex and the directrix right here, this distance is 3, so that's what p is going to equal. Or, sorry, that's what negative p is going to equal. So that means p is going to equal negative 3. And then that's what we can plug in as well. So it would be x minus 5 squared equals 4 times negative 3 times y minus 3. So that's going to be x minus 5 squared equals negative 12 times y minus 3. Okay, next we have an ellipses with vertices at negative 2, negative 1, and negative 2, 9, and co-vertices at negative 4, 5, and 0, 5. So looking at the vertices, we see that the y values changed. And to find the center, it would be looking for the middle of the vertices and the co-vertices. So the middle of 1 and 9 would be 5. So one way you could do that is 1 plus 9 over 2. And then looking at the co-vertices, the x values change, so we can find the midpoint of those two as well. And this will give us the center. So that's going to be at negative 4 over 2 and 10 over 2. So that's negative 2 and 5. Okay, so now looking at how far the vertices moved from the center, from 1 to 5 and from 5 to 9, that's going to be 4. So that means a equals 4, since the vertices give us the a value. And then b will equal the distance between the center and one of the co-vertices. So looking at the x-coordinate from negative 2 to negative 4, that's going to be 2. And this will tell us how to fill in our equation. So we have x plus 2 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 1. And in the denominator, since the y value changed, that means a squared is going to be under y. So it's going to be 16 in the denominator. And in the other denominator, that's going to be b squared because the co-vertices changed the x coordinates. So that means this is 4. Okay, and then next one we have hyperbola with vertices at 1, 7 and 7, 7, and foci at negative 1, 7, and 9, 7. So again, we first want to find the center. So this one's a little different because we don't have to change both. Like, we can just take these two and find the midpoint. So 1 plus 7 over 2 and 7 plus 7 over 2. This is the center. Okay, so then that's 8 over 2 and 14 over 2. which is 4 and 7. So the center is going to be at 4, 7. Then looking at the distance from the center to one of the vertices, from 4 to 1 and from 4 to 7, that's going to be 3. So that means we know a is 3. So a squared is 9. And then looking at the foci, that's going to give us the c value. So we have -1 to 4 and 4 to 9, and both of those are going to be 5. So c squared is also going to be, or it's going to be 25. Okay, then next we have to find b squared because that's what our equation asks for. So we're plugging it into c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So it's going to be 25 equals 9 plus b squared. And then we're going to subtract 9, so we get b squared equals 16. Okay, so now we have to decide like what goes where and fill in the equation. So our first denominator is always going to be a squared, which is 9. The second one's going to be b squared, which is 16. Then looking at the vertices, the x coordinate change, so that means x is going to be first. So it's going to be x minus 4 squared, and then y minus 7 squared. Okay, and then the last part, we want to classify the conics using their equations. So we can rewrite the equation as that long equation there, and we're going to use the discriminant b squared minus 4ac. So for this will be a circle if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, and b is 0, and a equals c. It'll be an ellipses if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, and either b doesn't equal 0 or a doesn't equal c. So for circles, both parts have to be true, and then for ellipses, one of them has to be true. For parabolas, this is when b squared minus 4ac is 0, and hyperbolas is when b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0. Okay, so we have a is 6, b is 0, and c is -2. So a is the number in front of x squared, which is 6, b is the number in front of xy, and since there's no xy in this equation, that means it's going to be 0, and c is going to be the number in front of y squared, which is -2. So using the discriminant, we get 0 squared minus 4 times 6 times -2, so that's going to be 48. And since it's positive, that means this is a hyperbola. Okay, next one, we're going to find the same 3 variables. A is the number in front of, oh, sorry, this should be a y squared. Okay, anyways, a is the number in front of x squared, which is 9. B is the number in front of xy, there's no xy, so it's 0. And then c is the number in front of y squared, which is 4. So we have 0 squared minus 4 times a times c, so that's 0, that's just going to be -144. And since b is 0, but a doesn't equal c, that means this is an ellipses, or an ellipse. Okay, and then in the last section, we want to classify the conic section and write its equation in standard form. So for these problems, we want to put all of the x's together and then all of the y's together. So I have a y here and a y here, and x here and x here. So I'm just going to rewrite this as 9y squared minus 54y minus x squared plus 8x. And I'm just going to move the 56 over to the other side. equals negative 56. So for each of these, we want to complete the square. So for the first one, we're going to first factor out the 9, so we get y squared minus 6y. And then we're going to add, this number is always going to be b over 2 squared. So the b value is negative 6. Negative 6 over 2 is negative 3, and then negative 3 squared is 9. So we're going to be adding 9. So that means on the other side I have to balance it out. But since we factored out the 9, I'm really adding 81. Then for the x's, we can factor out the negative and complete the square again. So again, it's going to be b over 2 squared. B is negative 8, and negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4, and negative 4 squared is 16. And since we factored out that negative, we're subtracting 16. So now we're going to factor. We have 9 times y minus 3 squared. Y squared minus 6y plus 9 is going to factor to y minus 3. And x squared minus 8x plus 16 is going to factor into x minus 4 squared. And when we simplify the right-hand side, that's going to equal 9. So since this is a hyperbola, we want this to equal 1 on the right, so we're going to divide both sides by 9. So we get y minus 3 squared over 1 minus x minus 4 squared over 9 equals 1. And for the last one, we have y squared plus 14y plus 16x plus 33 equals 0. So this one we know right away it's going to be a parabola because only y is squared. So I'm going to move these two to the right-hand side so that we can get the y's by itself. So that means I'm subtracting 16x and subtracting 33. So this equals, okay, and then now we want to complete the square again. So it's going to be y squared plus 16y plus, so this number is going to be b over 2 squared. B is 16. 16 over 2 is 8. Oh, shoot, sorry. This is 14. Okay, so 14 over 2 is 7, and then 7 squared is 49. So we're going to add 49 to both sides. So y squared plus 14y plus 49 is going to factor into y plus 7 squared. And then we get negative 16x plus 16. So on the right, we have to factor out whatever number is in front of x, which is negative 16. So we get x minus 1.